That's why when you look at him, he falls asleep reading the Group 935 manual.
I went back and saw that. He does.
He authored that. That's what caught my attention right away. So the fact that he made it, authored it, but was reading it in the house and then fell asleep to it, and that's when the Shadow Man influenced him to come downstairs. To me, it's just like, oh man, they're totally trying to just hint towards that it's, we're talking about fractured consciousnesses.
Right.
And if you look at the story, they spread it in our face all over and over again, right? Because, well, we were trying to find the specific soul that we wanted. And you look at the one in Gorod Krovi, look how crazy Nikolai was.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we can watch in the cutscene of Zetsubou no Shima, perfect examples of Takia going nuts when he's killing his other teammates and the crew members that are with him. And it's just him going crazy. But then, like, reflecting on it as well, when he's sitting there seeing the damage that he's done in his head, like, these are other universes that have occurred, but it's not the one that they're in. But that's all fractured memories.
And if they're in the ether, right, so if Richthofen's jumped into basically Max's swimming pool,
right,
where he's created this Monty, and the Apothecons, I believe, are like the infection of the ether, right? So there was at one point the Keepers, which were ordained as the Keepers of the universe, but it shows in there that they were making mistakes too, because they're so fractured everywhere now. So in other words, they started playing with 115.
Right.
So to me, it's almost like they're trying to just keep retelling the same story over and over again, but using so many different ways to tell it without going, hey, everybody, we're just telling the same thing over and over again to you.
Well, Monty even said that Element 115 shouldn't exist in our world. It wasn't until Group 935 learned to teleport that even became possible. Let's talk one last time about that ending. Let's talk about the blood vial that we know, because it's the most information we got, but we came to a conclusion of some sort, and we're going to talk about it. The blood vial that we see that's empty is what prevented them from dying in the world that was sucked together and, I would say, destroyed or erased from Samantha or Sophia and Dr. Maxis. I would say that it was just wiped clean. All of the Apothecons are gone, right? And we have this new free world. But in that case, our 4 characters should have as well been dead and died. Instead, they remain where they're standing, firm and strong, and survive it. And I think that's what the blood vial did the first time. And what Wazoo thought for the second blood vial, because we saw that we still had blood. And Monty was gonna erase them from history completely. And Wazoo thinks that what happened is he just cleaned the slate again, and instead the last blood vials brings them to Primus. They become Primus from that last blood vial. So they may have empty blood vials now on them while they're holding the staffs. But we're mixed up between the belt line of Dempsey, if he has a blood vial still hanging there or not. I think it's part of the robe still, but there's certain angles it looks like it's a blood vial. But we still got to think about, why are we seeing the Primus characters there at the end, and why is that important? And I'm starting to think as well that the last blood vial we had protected them, because he didn't know, right? He didn't know exactly what the blood vials did, except that it was just trickery of some sort in his head, and he was just pissed, so he wanted to just erase them. Because that's what he does with everything when it doesn't work his way. He just erases it and recreates it.
That's correct. And it allowed them to basically avoid the persecution that Monty was going to afflict upon them once everything was complete.
Mob of the Dead in itself is still just full of questions. I still have just so many questions. And what I want to conclude with Mob of the Dead and what we're given, because there's obviously stuff we're not given, But what we're given with is that, like you brought up earlier, Wasu, you brought up that Weasel knows Nikolai. He says his name every so often. Nikolai, Nikolai, Nikolai. Why do I remember that name? He remembers the name. But why would that be possible, right? Well, we think of the one teleport that happened in Zetsubou no Shima. And that teleport is now confirmed that they did go to Mob of the Dead because Richtofen's quotes of him talking to Dempsey wants it to keep it secret and not really talk about it that much. But they do slip every now and then. Dempsey will just say something about Mob of the Dead happening in Revelations, that teleport actually happening, and Richtofen will hush him, tell him to be quiet.
And I think a good point that we should take note to is the fact that he didn't really have clear recognition of why he's seen Nikolai.
Right.
So in other words, it was a state where Weasel wasn't familiar with. But when he's alive in the Alcatraz, like not in the human form, but in his dead form, right? They're trying to break that cycle, right? Which is what the whole game is about.
And every time we go into that mode, though, we're allowed to electrocute things. We're allowed to revive our own bodies.
That's right. So now if in the process, Richtofen in the future goes right after Weasel kills those other three characters to break the cycle, and Weasel's kind of like in the ether and kind of awe, like Gersh, he doesn't know what the fuck is going on anymore because now the cycle's broken. It would explain why when we get to play him in the past, he's got some type of recollection going on, because what we've been shown in Black Ops 3 is that worlds bleed.
But that's what Ascension did to Gersh, is once we freed him where? That's the question everyone asks about Gersh. Where did we free him? We freed him to the exact same place as when Weasel breaks the cycle.
Exactly.
They go to the same place.
And I think that same place is where they break that portal open in Origins. Which then goes to Agartha.
Well, that's the portal in France. So yeah, that's what they keep referring to it, the portal in France. The Ciphers do anyway. They call it the portal in France.
Right. And that portal in France is the opening up into the ether. Yes. But it's not until Maxis goes in, or Sam and Maxis have been in there, that they create this Agartha.
Ah, so that's what they did at the end of the cutscene when we see him fly in. They closed the portal in France because that's what gave them immunity.
There you
Remember? And that's why Monty thought it would destroy them.
That's right.
But the blood vials is the backup plan for that.
That's right, because now premise hasn't failed.
Damn.
Whereas then everybody thinks that it's going to be another way around. I think it's going on exactly how it's supposed to.
Yeah, like we think we've been shortcut, but if we were to think about it the way we're talking right now, that this last blood vial was used, and now we're the premise characters. We have the staves, and this is where our story continues.